Disgraced YouTuber Boogie2988 has yet again done something truly despicable. Despite his long dead and diminishing career, he was recently called out again for lying about having a rare type of cancer known as Polycythemia vera. So today I'm going to be covering the backstory, harm, and science behind this money-hungry fool. Starting on the 16th of November 2022, when Boogie initially announced the diagnosis.
Turns out I got a rare blood cancer. It really seems like all this bad stuff is happening at once right now, and I think I'm handling it pretty well.
Oh, how wrong he was.
Whoa, mama, what an intro that was. That's right, we're back in Glasgow, baby. Be sure to subscribe, like the video, and let's get into this. Now, it's important to note that Boogie specifically claims to have Polycythemia vera as opposed to the simpler and far less dangerous polycythemia. This is a topic that, having worked in an oncology ward previously, I'm particularly passionate as well as knowledgeable about. Polycythemia refers to an increased concentration of red blood cells in the blood. This increase can be quantified by elevated hematocrit, hemoglobin, and red blood cell counts. The condition can lead to thicker blood, which can cause complications such as blood clots and cardiovascular issues. There are three main types of this condition, and don't worry, we won't go into too much detail because this isn't really a medical channel, but it is important that you know this so that later stuff makes more sense. I won't go into the real nitty-gritty, but additional information will be shown on screen if you're interested at all, because I don't really want this video to take too long. The least dangerous and most common type is relative polycythemia. This condition arises from a reduction in plasma volume, which leads to an apparent increase in red blood cell concentration. Common causes include dehydration, severe stress, or severe burns. The reason that it's so non-threatening, however, is that in this case, the red blood cell concentration is relative, not due to an actual increase in red blood cell mass. Treatment involves addressing the underlying cause, such as rehydration or stress reduction. Once the plasma volume is restored, red blood cell levels usually will just normalize.
For the sake of this video, plasma is just the same thing as blood. If you're a doctor, pretend you didn't hear that.
Then there's absolute polycythemia. This form of polycythemia results from an actual increase in red blood cell mass due to elevated levels of erythropoietin. Causes include chronic hypoxia from conditions like chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or sleep apnea, living in high altitudes, tumors that secrete erythropoietin, and certain heart or lung diseases. Because of this increase, the risk of complications such as thrombosis increases with higher red blood cell mass. Treatment focuses on the underlying cause, such as improving oxygenation in chronic hypoxia or removing tumors that produce erythropoietin. Addressing these causes can help reduce red blood cell production. Then there's the big mama, the one that Boogie is claiming to have, which is primary absolute polycythemia, otherwise known as Polycythemia vera. Polycythemia vera is a type of myeloproliferative neoplasm, a blood cancer that bone marrow produces too many red blood cells. This condition is often caused by a mutation in the JAK2 gene. This is undoubtedly the most dangerous form of polycythemia. It carries significant risks, including increased blood viscosity, which can lead to thrombosis, strokes, and heart attacks. There's also a risk of progression to myelofibrosis or acute leukemia. Treatment involves regular phlebotomy, which is the removal of blood to reduce red blood cell mass, medications to suppress bone marrow activity, and managing symptoms and complications. Patients often require lifelong monitoring and treatment to manage the disease and prevent complications. So now that we're clued up on all of that, let's go back to being a commentary channel.
Alright, I think it's time that we finally cover this beast. It really is good to be back home, but the downside is we need to watch a man lie about his cancer diagnosis. So there were rumors of Boogie faking his cancer that were going around for a couple months now, I believe. But now it's all really come to light, and it's all sort of culminated in this stream that Destiny did where he invaded a lolcow podcast live stream thing.
Boogie, 2488, you are being confronted tonight. I am 99% sure that you are faking.
No, don't move.
You are faking your cancer diagnosis, Boogie.
So this stream that he's invaded is basically an episode of the lolcow podcast, as far as I am aware of. I know the bloke on the bottom right is Wings of Redemption, who Boogie actually had a boxing fight with. I don't know what it is with people that I'm covering recently going downhill after their boxing fights that they lose. I mean, we had Uruguay and... Actually, it was pretty much only Uruguay, but it is weird that it's happened twice. And also, for those who don't know, a lolcow is not a derogatory term referring to someone's size, as much as it may look like that when you look at the hosts of this podcast. It's actually just one of those internet terms that is used in reference to people whose only purpose is basically to be laughed at. Amberlynn Reid, I believe her name is, from a few years back, is like a perfect example of this. And to be fair, Boogie is also a perfect example of this, because that's the only purpose he's served on the internet for the past year and a half or so.
Did the doctor ever ever tell you, or did he ever say the word cancer?
He said polycythemia vera, which is a form of cancer, as he explained it to me. And no, it is not secondary polycythemia, which is Nicholas Diorio's explanation for this bullshit.
See, this is exactly why I wanted to cover all the medical jargon that is going to be used in this wee clip here. I think it's especially hard to follow if you don't actually know what's being said. As we've established, secondary polycythemia is nowhere near as brutal or dangerous as polycythemia vera is. And also to the point of the Nicholas Diorio bloke, who he just mentioned there, I actually have the screenshot of him asking Boogie about secondary polycythemia. So this is the tweet where Nicholas asks him, do you have secondary polycythemia? To which Boogie responds by sending him the link to the cancer, basically, and insisting that that is the one that he has, and that's the one that the doctor gave him. Interestingly though, he also mentions that he has no idea what secondary polycythemia is, which if you're really being diagnosed with polycythemia vera, I feel like would be an important detail to add if you're the doctor diagnosing it to him. Like the fact that it sounds like he's not even heard of anything like that is a little bit odd to me, but maybe he's just lying again. I want to stress here just how much Boogie lies and how much he is renowned for lying. If Boogie says something, and I mean anything, you would genuinely be better off assuming that it is a lie than that he's telling the truth. For years, he'd just tell lies, not even about big things, but things that made no difference and that no one cared about. He'd lie about what games he's played and what games he's completed for whatever reason, stuff that just doesn't make any difference to anything. He is a legitimate compulsive liar, not a doubt in my mind.
Why does he order a bone marrow biopsy to confirm it?
Well, if he ordered a bone marrow biopsy to confirm it, it would be weird that you told us that you already had a diagnosis and a confirmarrow if it has been confirmed.
Because the markers are in my blood. The hormone markers are in my blood.
Correct.
Destiny.
But you said that you'd received a diagnosis, but now you just told me that you got a bone marrow biopsy to confirm.
It's a diagnosis, and now we're confirming.
Sure.
It's called a confirmation. The hormone markers are already in my blood.
Yep.
I think Destiny's done a great job pulling Boogie up on the facts. He's basically entered the room, slapped his dick on the table, and immediately dismantled every argument that Boogie could possibly make, because Boogie is immediately withdrawing and using very powerful language to try and dismiss the facts.
Based on everything,
biopsy, because I'm wanting to do that, because I'm praying to God I don't fucking have cancer.
I'm praying the 1% chance that I don't fucking have cancer.
Doesn't care.
I'm praying to God I'm taking the 1 in a million fucking chance that they're fucking wrong, and that there's another reason that I have the hormone fucking
And it's like, no matter how passionate you get, it doesn't change the facts of what you're saying, because what you're saying is that you don't know if you have cancer for sure, which is weird because 2 years ago you said, I have cancer, it's incurable, but it takes a while to kick in, I guess. At no point did you ever mention that it was not 100% confirmed, and to this day, according to him, based on what he's just said, he hasn't even got the bone marrow biopsy, which, as we established at the beginning of this video, is a pretty clear and important marker for diagnosing polycythemia vera.
Because 2 years ago, they told me I have polycythemia vera based on the fact that I had increased red blood cell counts, increased hemoglobin, and the hormone markers in my blood. And it all spelled pretty definitively that I have this.
So all of the symptoms that he's just mentioned there, as we established earlier, yes, are indicative of polycythemia vera. However, they're also very much indicative of the more likely diagnosis, which is just polycythemia. Fuck the vera. The vera is irrelevant here. The increased red blood cell count, the hemoglobin levels, that's all just polycythemia or absolute polycythemia, secondary, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't necessarily mean he has polycythemia vera. What might have happened is that the doctors know for a fact he has a form of polycythemia and basically ran him down every form of it and told him what they all meant. But there is no way they would have said for sure that he has polycythemia vera if they didn't know 100%, which makes it even more confusing why Boogie would claim to not know what secondary polycythemia is, when it is a lot more likely that that is what he was actually diagnosed with. There is a chance at this point that the whole thing is just a result of Boogie being stupid rather than malevolent, because Boogie is one of the stupidest people on the internet. However, what happens later sort of reveals that no, he knows the truth and he's doing everything he can to hide his lies.
Boogie has a condition called polycythemia, which means there's an elevation in his...
Polycythemia vera.
No.
Polycythemia vera.
Taking an exogenous hormone, TRT, testosterone, that caused a increase in him developing this condition.
Taking testosterone, for those who are unaware, we probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, but taking testosterone will not lead to any form of well, it might lead to some, but definitely not polycythemia vera. It can, however, lead to secondary polycythemia. So once again, to reiterate for the third fucking time, it's very, 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 very strange that Boogie had no idea what secondary polycythemia is, when the cause of whatever illness he has is a result of him taking testosterone. None of it really just adds up at all.
All of the things that Boogie described, both the things that caused this and the treatments for it, are consistent with secondary polycythemia. None of these are consistent with cancer.
See, Destiny is wrong about that one bit, because Boogie mentioned that he's getting phlebotomies or bloodlets, which is indicative of polycythemia vera. Now, whether or not he's being truthful about that is who knows. In my opinion, it is very possible that Boogie does have polycythemia vera, but he just doesn't know. And considering the video that he made confirming he had cancer was 2 years ago, it makes a lot of sense to assume that by now we should know for sure. So the fact that we don't is a major red flag.
For cancer.
Confirmation.
Is this House MD? Are we treating a blood cancer without actually confirming it yet? For 2 years you've been having a cancer treatment without confirming there's actually cancer there?
Destiny's spot on. He's absolutely right. It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense at all. It's not looking good for you, Boogie.
When I go to the doctor, they give me shit like this, which is like papers.
Because I was going to say, Boogie can end this whole thing.
Exactly.
Show me a single document with polycythemia vera on it. You don't have one. I don't think the doctor ever diagnosed you with it. And
This is where it gets incredibly contentious and weird and almost uncomfortable, because the mention of diagnoses and showing doctor's notes and blah, 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 is a very easy way to prove himself right, to prove himself truthful. So let's see what he says in response.
Yeah,
I'm never showing any of these motherfuckers my medical paper. Go fuck yourself. I said that 2 years ago, and I'm staying by it now. Destiny, Jackson Clark, Keemstar, you can see it when I fucking die. It's my fucking goddamn medical record. I've given you every goddamn phone call. I've given you every fucking text. I've given you, it's never made a single goddamn thing better. I'm not gonna fucking do it. Go fuck yourselves.
You could easily end this right now by just showing
I would rather you motherfuckers continue to LARP. I would rather you motherfuckers continue to LARP.
Okay, well, no, here's an easy question.
Now, just to demonstrate how nonsensical what he's saying is here, this is a documentary by Mike Klum about the life of Boogie, starring Boogie himself. In this documentary, he says absolutely everything. And I mean everything. It's very clear from this documentary that he does not give a shit about what people know about him. In fact, there is a section in this documentary where he sits down and reads to the documentarian every single one of his medical diagnoses. So it's clearly not something that's too sensitive for him to share. In this documentary, he talks about his life as a sugar daddy, the escorts that he's constantly hiring, how he's used all of his money on crypto and prostitutes. It's one of the most perplexingly transparent and honest things I've ever seen in my life. So it's very strange for him to change his tune all of a sudden and not want to present his cancer diagnoses when that would clear his name from one of the biggest accusations that he's ever faced as a creator, which for him is really, really saying something, by the way. I would also say that it is important for him to confirm the polycythemia vera, because he has used it, maybe not directly, to solicit donations and buying of merch for him and to support him. In this video titled I Need Your Help, which was released about a month after the supposed cancer diagnosis, he details how much he is struggling financially, and he talks about how what you can do as a viewer is watch all the videos to its entirety, buy his merch, donate to him, like super chats, donations and all that. And there are a lot of people who no doubt will have made those donations with the thoughts and knowledge in mind that they are supporting someone who has a form of cancer. So not confirming the existence of that cancer and furthermore lying about it is really, really sleazy and sneaky predatory shit. Now, I would say that it borders on committing actual fraud. However, Boogie never lists his cancer as a reason to make donations to him. So therefore, it's impossible to legally prosecute him for fraud. And call me conspiratorial, but I think that that's a very conscious and intentional decision from him. I mean, if he really does have a form of cancer, with everything that we know about this man, he would absolutely use it as a reason to manipulate people to donate to him. And it is very possible that the reason he doesn't use it as a method to convince people to donate to him is because he knows he would be lying about something that is fucking serious and can actually get him in legal trouble. I can't say 100% though, so I'm throwing the information out there. You can make your own conclusions when it comes to that.
If you're hoping they're wrong, then why 2 years ago were you talking about fighting cancer? Why would you be talking about
I have been for 2 years.
Fighting cancer? How? With what?
See, it's just getting ridiculous now. They're talking themselves into circles. They're saying the same thing. Boogie is saying that he wants a bone marrow biopsy done because he's hoping they're wrong. But if that's the case, why has he been saying that he has definitively been fighting cancer for 2 years? And then when Destiny pulls him up on it, he immediately contradicts what he just said 5 seconds ago by saying, no, I have been fighting cancer for 2 years. Dummy, you've confirmed multiple times that you don't know that.
You treat polycythemia vera almost identically to the way that you treat polycythemia.
So I do think there are different treatments available for polycythemia vera, and I think that the outcomes for that are significantly worse than just having it induced by some other thing like sleep apnea or hypoxia. But I mean, if you wanted to,
the treatment plan is pretty identical.
Yeah,
the treatment plan is pretty identical.
I don't know how you're so sure of that, Boogie. Didn't you say in the DMs that you had no idea what secondary polycythemia is? See, this is what I mean about just everything Boogie says being a lie. Like, who knows which one's the lie? Is it what he said in the DM conversation, or is it what he's saying right now? You can choose! Maybe the cancer was just the friends that we made along the way. In all seriousness, imagine actually being a fan of Boogie's that has cancer. I mean, there's not a lot to like Boogie for, but it is genuinely admirable when someone who has that sort of problem in their life is open and honest about it. So other people who do have polycythemia vera, or just any form of cancer, or are sickly in general, might have looked up to Boogie for admitting that and going through life with it and pushing through to an extent. So for him to lie about it like this and not confirm it when he absolutely should, I couldn't imagine how violating and painful that might be for someone who's stuck by him thinking that they were going through the same issues. Knowing that a huge public figure has exploited your life-ruining illness for personal gain and sympathy, I couldn't imagine how discouraging that might be. Maybe Boogie does have cancer, but I mean, it looks like it's just his personality.
Hold on, stop. Hold on.
One of the reasons I was going to do a GoFundMe was because they verify, for the record. They verify.
First of all, GoFundMe has terrible verification. It's been proven so many times in the past. And secondly, if you were to create a GoFundMe without having the official certification, and he said that he did have definitive cancer, that would be a crime, it would be fraud, and that's probably why he hasn't done it. I feel like we as people know Boogie pretty well after all the information that he's spouted about himself over the past few years. And I can say with pretty definitive certainty that if he did have polycythemia vera, a GoFundMe would have been made the fucking day he got that diagnosis. And the reason that it hasn't, as I said before, is because he doesn't want to break the law.
Like his mom had cancer. It's just a little bit gross, I feel like, when people are talking publicly about fighting cancer.
Another thing all of this does is desensitize people to real cancer diagnosis. Like when a public figure actually does have cancer and they come out and talk about it publicly, all stuff like this does is either make that harder to believe or make the message that they're trying to send less effective, because people are just going to think about when Boogie fucked it for everyone. I actually remember when I was in year 7, which is 8th grade, I believe, for my American audience, there was a girl in our year who lied about having cancer so that she could convince a boy that she liked to go on a date with her. And even with the knowledge that she would be dead soon, the bloke still didn't want to go on a date with her just to make her happy on her final days. I mean, obviously, it wasn't her final day, she was fucking lying about it, but it's still pretty amusing nonetheless. And obviously, yeah, it's a shitty thing to do, and it's funny to laugh at, but she was like 13 years old, so it's not that deep. Boogie is a 40-year... How old is Boogie? 49 years old, and he's doing this shit. I mean, hey, maybe it's encouraging to some of you that no matter how much of a loser you are, at least you're not a 50-year-old man pretending to have cancer on the internet, as well as everything else that this fucking bloke's done. You'll never be as much of a loser as him.
You motherfuckers were in my marriage. You guys were in everything else. You're in every aspect of my life. Fuck you. Let me have one goddamn.
What guy? You're trying to tell me
tomorrow.
That's everybody.
Lead. Boogie lies about cancer, then to hand this shit over to you pieces of shit.
See, this is where you just see more of his complete narcissism and lack of accountability. He has this inability to take responsibility for anything that he does with his life. Talked about how the internet ruined his marriage and that the people who criticize him have basically ruined everything that he has going on in life, when no, it's because of your actions. You know how many people on the internet have successful marriages that aren't ruined because they're not fucking dickheads? If you're the only one that this is happening to, maybe you're the problem. The same thing happens in the documentary that we talked about earlier. He always talks about, oh man, I wish I took better care of my body, but here we are, it's all over now. When it's like, no, You're alive. You can still fix the problems that you have. It would genuinely amaze you how much your life would improve if you just took a little bit of fucking accountability.
And he does not have a cancer diagnosis. There is 0% chance that he has one. Every leading thing for this cancer diagnosis the doctor talked about has to do with secondary polycythemia. The sleep apnea was a contributor to that, and the TRT was a contributor to that.
Of course, except for the hormone markers in my blood.
What Boogie doesn't understand is that there's not a great... Maybe he does understand. He probably does understand it and he's knowingly bullshitting everyone, but there isn't a gray area. Like, you either have cancer or you don't. And you either know that you have cancer or you don't know that you have cancer. And if there's a maybe... I'm not quite sure. Maybe I have cancer, and cancer's pretty bad. Like cancer, ooh, boo. We don't like cancer. Cancer's pretty shit. No cap, no swiggle, no diggle, homie. But even if there is that 1% doubt in your mind, you shouldn't be making a video claiming that you have it, knowing that people are donating to you and buying your merch and all that other shit. It's just not acceptable. You're 50 years old.
You know, if you heard of this, Destiny, I just got a bit of a windfall.
Ooh.
Might have heard about it.
Yeah, you may have heard of it.
We have,
what's
yes.
What's a windfall?
He did a $10,000 crypto scam, using partly his cancer thing as an excuse for why he needed to scam his fans.
Speaking of breaking laws, Destiny mentioned something very interesting there about the crypto scam that he did. I'm sure you're all aware of it, but recently Boogie took $10,000 to promote a crypto scam called Fatty Coin, which was essentially just a pump and dump. And part of the justification that he used for taking the money and being a shameless sellout to scam all of his fans was that he was trying to treat his cancer. Remember this because it'll be important later.
Boogie can confirm that he has polycythemia vera, and he actually has like a doctor confirmation of the blood cancer. I'll throw $5,000 towards his medical treatment. I'll make that personal pledge right now.
Yeah, 10,000. You're not seeing my medical records for 20, not for 50. You're not seeing my medical records.
So if it wasn't already obvious enough that he's lying, I feel like that's pretty much the nail in the coffin. Just to refresh all of your recollections, Boogie is someone who constantly goes on about how poor he is and how much he needs money. He is constantly begging for donations, and he's constantly justifying all the horrific actions and scams that he promotes with the reasoning of his financial situation. He comes across as someone who would suck off a camel for a tenner, and also pay 10 grand to get sucked off by a camel, because he's awful with money when he does have it. So just remember, for those who are in support of Boogie, the very few people that there are, that when he promotes his next scam and uses his financial situation as justification for doing so, that he could have just taken 5 grand from Destiny and a further, I think, Keem put 50 grand on the table for him to confirm a diagnosis, and all he had to do was tell the truth. I mean, he is absolutely seething here. I've never seen him more genuinely angry ever. Usually he loves getting hate. He just loves the attention because he knows more eyes means more money. But something like this seems to have genuinely rattled him more than anything, which can be shown as well by the fact that he deactivated his Twitter, because he is a Twitter addict. Twitter was the thing that sort of ruined his reputation to begin with, because before Twitter became as big as it was in terms of like spouting hate speech, he was known as one of the nicest people on YouTube. He was known as the Mr. Rogers of the YouTube gaming scene. People loved him. He's like an OG YouTuber that people really fucking loved. He had like a cult fan base surrounding him. But then Twitter came along and he just had the inability to shut the fuck up. You know those like, you know them Telltale games where like you have dialogue options and shit? Boogie goes through life like he's finished everything, he's 100% in the whole game, and he wants to see what choosing all of the worst dialogue options would do for him. In the past year or so, I've never heard him say anything and thought, you know what, Boogie? I hear you, man. He is a habitual prick.
This is the last thing I have is my medical records.
All right, do you care about this anymore?
If I hand this over, I've given over literally every goddamn thing.
What if you give it directly to Destiny himself? I mean,
it's funnier if we just hang up on them.
Medical records.
Destiny, and you know what? This might have turned out differently had he messaged me the night before.
But Nicholas did message you the night before, and you said you had no idea what secondary polycythemia is. You basically told him to fuck off and that he was trying too much. It's all just a load of shit. He's acting like an actual child.
All right, well, hey, thanks a lot, guys. Cool. We'll see you guys
Take
later.
care, Destiny.
Bye.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man. Good night.
So then Destiny leaves the stream, and it's pretty much over from his point of view, but honestly, this is just the beginning in terms of just insanity. Boogie goes on his medical portal, and he's scrolling for about 20 minutes. He doesn't want to show it to anyone. He doesn't want to show the diagnosis to anyone, but he claims that he wants to confirm it for himself. So he has no idea if he even has cancer. And by the way, I'm sure this doesn't need to be said, but obviously he doesn't find it in his medical portal. I feel like after this stream's over, his next next purchase is going to be a fucking human-sized microwave. You'll probably need about 5 of them to fit Boogie in, to be honest with you. He'll just bathe in that microwave and smoke a 10-pack of cigarettes to try getting some sort of cancer so he can get the 70 grand or whatever and clear his name, his very reputable name. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if you catch him licking asbestos on his stream anytime soon. It's such a weird one because there's 2 options here. 1, Boogie's reputation is even worse than it already is, or 2, he actually has cancer. So either way, it's pretty bad. Obviously, you'd rather the first one. That'll be better for everyone because, I mean, he's already hit rock bottom. He can't really get any worse than this, so the fan base that he does have is probably going to stick with him, to be brutally honest with you. Like, if they went through all of the other shit and still genuinely like him, I don't think that this will actually make that much of a difference. Oh, but I almost forgot the best part, because at one point on the stream, Boogie says that it's possible that his doctor lied about the diagnosis of cancer for clout. I'm being serious. This is a real thing that happened.
Well, I'm saying I do have cancer and know it is very unlikely, but I guess it's possible my doctor could be a fucking quack. I guess it's possible he's been lying to me for clout.
You can redact information. There's no issue with that. But just showing, I mean, it literally is just a page that says patient diagnoses.
Yep.
And then it lists what you have. It doesn't tell you who the doctor is. It doesn't tell you what hospital you go to. It literally just says the disease name.
And I won't be doing that.
But I don't understand why not.
Because he does have cancer. He does have cancer.
Yeah, that's going to be the narrative they'll go with. So that's the
well, no, I mean, I'm legit trying to give you the benefit of the doubt.
That's Metalcore, an actual cancer haver, confronting Boogie on his diagnosis. And obviously, as someone who actually has the disease, he's giving him the benefit of the doubt and being really nice. And as someone who worked in an oncology ward, which is basically the study of cancer, like I said before, this is something you see often. People with cancer are genuinely some of the most inspiring and strong, good-hearted people that I've ever met in my life. They have this crazy ability to find the positives in even the most dire of situations. You will have someone in infinite pain on their deathbed saying nice things. It's insane to me. When you see somebody who is on their last few breaths and they're talking about how without the experience of the pain that they went through, they wouldn't have found the true importance of friends or family or the beauty of the life that they're no longer able to experience, it's genuinely inspiring. It's why I personally am actually getting a lot more heated and a bit more angry than I originally intended to get, because Boogie doesn't display any of those qualities. In fact, he's probably the least inspiring person on the fucking internet. And obviously that's not to say that all cancer patients are good-hearted and angels. Some of them are twats. Like, just because you have cancer, it doesn't mean you can't be a twat. But from my experience, most of them are lovely.
Like, you haven't started having cancer?
No, it's like the tutorial version of cancer.
What he's
Does
saying
that make
is
sense? It's the
pilot
easy
said-
one.
pilot
If you're going to
said-
get one, this is the one you want to get.
What's he saying? He says that he has the tutorial, but the starter pack to cancer, and that Metalcore has actual cancer. Imagine saying this to an actual cancer haver, someone who's actually struggled with the pain of having to think about his life potentially ending prematurely, and he's sat there talking about how he has the starter pack.
Not the Dark Souls of cancer. That's
No,
right.
yeah,
So
yeah,
this
yeah,
would be.
It's the Animal Crossing of cancer. You have the Dark Soul.
Oh my god, that is genuinely. He has the Animal Crossing of cancer. Oh, this is great foreshadowing actually, because fucking KK Slider was he's in the setup. He's right there. I can get him out. Here he is. It's KK. Do you have Polycythemia vera, my friend? What do you think of Boogie, mate? Do you think he's lying? That's lovely, KK Slider. I'll tell you what. You can sit there for the rest of the video. I hope you guys enjoy him. He's a loved member of this channel, so subscribe for him.
Nick Diorio, did he have something to do with this too then, or what did he say?
Certainly he did. He said, "Do you have
What?
secondary polycythemia?" And I said, "No. This is what they diagnosed me of," and I linked it to him. But it was a pretty big sign that there was a group chat going. I told Tommy about it this morning. And I was like, yeah, what do we do, Desi? And we made a decision, and I'm going to stick by that
I
decision.
didn't know what you were talking about.
So that's completely presumptuous and like 99% false. But even if it was true, it doesn't really change any of the facts of the situation. You're still a dirty liar. Boogie then tries to change the subject like a wee boy by talking about his abusive ex-girlfriend. It's a very confusing maneuver.
This in private, I'm not entirely certain. My very first girlfriend was physically abusive to me. And so as part of my childhood, when we were 16, 17 years old, because she would hit me and stuff, I ended up holding her down. I ended up pinning her against the wall to make her stop hurting me and hurting herself. And I've carried tremendous guilt about it for my entire life. And I know as soon as I ever said that, it would mean that people would think I beat women. And so I've held it in.
I literally don't care. Nobody cares about that right
Thank
now.
you.
No, this is a high level maneuver. This is a level 100 strategy, but he hasn't got enough points on the skill tree to pull this off yet. He can't pivot the conversation successfully, and that's why you get the incredible response. The best thing to come out of this so far. He's trying to talk about his abusive girlfriend, and Metacore, who once again actually has cancer, just gleefully says, "Shut the fuck up, no one gives a shit. Let's talk about the actual problem here."
Destiny, Jackson Clark, Keemstar, you can see it when I fucking die.
Jackson Clark, for those who don't know, is sort of the one who started the whole rumor of Boogie faking his cancer, which I guess isn't really a rumor at this point, it's just a fact. But the reason I bring it up is because Boogie has a very strange habit of only referring to him by his full name, like he's fucking Charlie Brown or some shit. He talks about him as though he's an evil Marvel supervillain, like, "Oh, why I order." Jackson Clark lives in his mind so rent-free that even the other hosts of whatever podcast he's on don't know who he is, and they're just constantly asking, who the fuck is Jackson Clark? It is hilarious. Like, he's just bringing up this bloke who no one fucking knows.
Taking one goddamn thing with me, and this is a decision I made when Jackson Clark demanded this shit 2 fucking years ago. And it's a decision I'm fucking sticking to here 2 years
I don't know who
later.
Jackson Clark is.
I don't even know if I'm
Moist
getting his
Critical.
name right. It's fucking Moist Critical's butt buddy. I don't fucking know.
Why do you keep
They do
calling
a
him
podcast
Jackson
together.
Clark?
I don't know his real name. What is it?
I don't know who the fuck that is. No one knows.
I literally don't know who we're
Clark
talking
is.
I
about.
don't know his real name is Jackson Clark. He's not Spider-Man. He's not using an alias. Just call him Jackson?
Well, you won't prove that you do.
This is the only situation in human history where you've taken an L by not having cancer. And even if he actually does have cancer, he still lied about it for 2 years without knowing for sure, and essentially pulled another scam on his audience. Case closed. There's also this really perplexing moment where he pretends to not know that they're still live and says that he doesn't have it so that he sounds more believable, when it's very clear that he does know that they're live streaming.
See you guys.
All right, I'll fucking read the donations. You guys can leave.
Okay,
You literally
yeah.
can't do that because Keem's oh no, I guess you can. Okay, never
Yes,
mind.
I sure can.
All right,
I
making
think
sure.
Jaden's-
Here's the thing, now that
Eat
we're off,
shit and smile, man. If you
listen, now that we're off camera, let me just go ahead and say, because I can't say this in front of the fucking internet, okay? But now that's just us men. It comes down to.
I mean, he just responded to Metacore talking about reading donations, so he knows that they're live. It's such a pathetic attempt to sound more believable. He just somehow keeps one-upping himself and making it worse and worse and worse. He also decided it would be a good idea to get naked on stream, which I'm not going to show on YouTube for obvious reasons, but he gets naked. He doesn't need to censor it because he's so fucking fat that it just covers his dick. I mean, it's an interesting strategy, for sure, to say the least. I'll read this tweet by Keem, who admittedly sums it up pretty well. To the best of my knowledge, based on everything I know, Boogie went on steroids that could cause cancer in the blood years ago and was warned of the dangers. 2 years ago, after he lost all his money in crypto, he went to the doctor and had high red blood cells indicating he may have cancer blood. Before he got any confirmation, he rushed to make a YouTube video announcing he had cancer. 2 years later, he still doesn't have confirmation he has cancer, but he has been telling everyone he does and used it for sympathy multiple times. Whether it was promoting his crypto scam or asking people to financially support him, lying about the cancer could be considered fraud. He is scheduled to get a confirmation test to see if he 100% has cancer soon, so ironically, even though he's lied, he may still have cancer. Whole thing is sad as hell. So I genuinely didn't know that Keemstar mentioned the fraud thing as well. I thought I was really smart for thinking of that, but I guess other people have that thought as well. I will say though that I think Boogie has been very careful to not mention the cancer whenever he's talking about donations to him, because he probably knows how much of a shitstorm that could cause for him and his life. Like, that goes beyond just ruining his internet reputation and into the realm of legal ramifications and a loss of money that he apparently doesn't even have. So I wouldn't be so sure that what he's doing could be considered fraud. He might have just skirted his way around it, but maybe not. I'm not a lawyer, so who knows. Anyway, the last chapter of this story, for now at least, is the CoffeeZilla segment. This is where the crypto stuff comes into play. This is where it becomes important that Boogie was using his cancer situation as a way to justify him scamming his audience for a pump and dump scheme.
The money's already spent. It's at Mercy Hospital right now. It's gone. I used it to pay debts.
I'll be honest, I have no idea if Boogie is faking cancer. I also don't understand why he wouldn't just show it if he had a diagnosis, but either way, we won't know without an actual doctor involved. So I won't speculate on that, but what I can do is confront Boogie on this second claim, the cancer and medical bills, because I found out a few days ago that these statements were false. He gave me 2 receipts for the time period, one for $154, the other for a copay of $60, a total of $214 by the time we talked.
Okay, so this is interesting. Boogie had told CoffeeZilla that all the money was gone. He'd used it all on medical expenses, but then it turns out he'd only spent $214, which is piss all, especially to someone who is making as much money as Boogie should be making. He's also alleging that to save face, Boogie spent a more appropriate amount of money on medical bills after he said that the money was all gone and this all came to light to attempt to make himself seem more, I guess, trustworthy. And as you can see here, he's getting he's very angry at CoffeeZilla for confronting him on it.
Wait, that's on June 28th. That's on June 28th. You showed me a payment for $550 on June 28th, which is after we talked, after you told me the money was all gone.
Yes! Have you never heard of the colloquialism? Yeah, that money's all gone, it's all spent. I have a specific thing I need to do with it. Have you never heard that colloquialism? Use fucking Google!
This is exactly what Amber Heard's defense was when she was pulled up on the charity thing. Like, she had told everyone that she had donated the full amount that she pledged to whatever charities she pledged them to, and then in court it was revealed that she hadn't donated a single dollar to them, and she used the excuse of, oh, but I was going to do it. So, I'm in the clear. Boogie's doing the exact same thing.
I'm not used to this level of scrutiny! I'm not
I can
used
tell.
to this level of
Yes.
scrutiny!
God, what a fucking infantile wee baby. Anyway, if you want to hear CoffeeZilla's side regarding this whole situation, the video's there, you can watch it for yourself. I think this one's long enough as it is. So yeah, I think I'll end the video there. I hope you all enjoyed. It's good to be back. It's good to be back in Glasgow after the Florida videos because I really wasn't happy with the level of, I guess, quality that those videos were. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for watching this far. Subscribe, like the video, because we're going to up the levels, we're going to lock in, and I hope you enjoy the journey. Bye.